Celebrity interviews provide the public with a chance to see their favorite singers, actors, and comedians in a more candid light than they're actually accustomed to. But some interviews serve as a precursor to darker times in their lives, which sometimes only come to pass many years later. Number 10. When it comes to the royal family of Britain, Princess Diana remains one of the public's favorites, despite the fact that she tragically passed away nearly 3 decades ago. From the outside, her marriage to Prince Charles and her relationship with the rest of the royals seemed normal, but thanks to one interview that took place in 1995, that perception quickly changed. But it wasn't just the revelations made by Diana that shocked the world. Many years later, it would come to light that the interviewer, the BBC's Martin Bashir, had faked documents to secure the interview. These included bank statements that were shown to Earl Spencer. Bashir later admitted to doing this and stated he regretted his actions. He then formally apologized to the royal family, and the BBC followed suit. Following an inquiry, it was revealed that Diana had written a letter in 1995 in which she stated she had no regrets about that interview, which was conducted at her home, Kensington Palace, and it was decided that Bashir's deceit in no way affected her decisions to sit down with him. During the interview, she answered questions about her personal life and revealed that she had struggled with postpartum depression at one point. She then made the shocking revelation that during that time, she received very little support from the rest of her family. She suggested that they may have been unfamiliar with the disorder and that they didn't know how to deal with it correctly. But instead of seeking advice from top physicians, they labeled her as mentally unstable and, in their minds, unstable. This soon led to another disorder, bulimia. She told Bashir that this was also the result of her marriage, which had started to deteriorate, but the rest of the family saw this as further instability, and Diana started to feel as though they had decided to abandon her altogether. By this time, it was known that Prince Charles had been unfaithful, but the woman who was involved with him was never named until the interview with the BBC, when Diana openly named Camilla Parker Bowles. She stated that it felt as though there were 3 people in her marriage rather than 2, and it had started to feel very crowded. But what she said next took the world by storm. She admitted that she had also started having an affair of her own with James Hewitt, the family's horse riding instructor. Next, Bashir breached the subject of Charles being the next in line for the throne. She stated that whenever they discussed it, it would lead to a heated argument. She felt that he was ill-suited for the role and the pressures that go along with it, but Charles disagreed. By this time, the couple had separated for 3 years, but the revelations made that day ensured that their marriage would remain irreparable. The Queen contacted both Diana and Charles, urging them to finalize their divorce as soon as possible. Number 9. In January of 1999, the world was introduced for the first time to the pop star Britney Spears, who, following the release of her debut album titled Baby One More Time, took the world by storm. While Spears was no stranger to the spotlight, since she had appeared as a member of the all-new Mickey Mouse Club on television as a child, the release of this album at age 18 propelled her to superstardom, and in a very short time span, she had amassed millions of fans. She started dating another pop star, Justin Timberlake, but by 2002, that relationship had run its course, and the pair decided to split up. This was one of the subjects that were discussed between Spears and ABC's primetime interviewer, Diane Sawyer, during a November 2003 interview that would later be revealed to have had a very negative impact on her life. At the time of the interview, Spears had turned 21, and she agreed to sit down with Sawyer at her apartment in New York. Before the interview was conducted, Timberlake had claimed that Spears had been unfaithful to him while they were a couple, and Sawyer pounced on this claim. She stated that Spears had done something that caused Timberlake a lot of heartache and suffering, and asked about the details. She added that the pop star had, in her words, disappointed a lot of mothers in the country, since she was no longer presenting herself as an innocent woman. Spears repeatedly stated that the line of questioning was making her feel uncomfortable, and that she was starting to get embarrassed, but Sawyer continued unabated, ignoring Spears' obvious hint for her to return focus to different questions. She went as far as to describe the singer's abdominal muscles as the most valuable square inch of real estate in the entertainment industry, causing further embarrassment. When Sawyer spoke about all the publicity that Spears was getting thanks to the tumultuous nature of her personal life, the singer broke down in tears and finally decided to end the interview, but Sawyer seemed unremorseful. She would later state that she felt exploited by Sawyer, who opted for an aggressive line of questioning, which made her feel like she'd be in the wrong no matter which answer she gave. She also criticized her then manager, who organized the interview and made her sit down with Sawyer. When it became apparent that Spears was becoming ever more uncomfortable, her manager didn't step in and did nothing to protect her, even when she broke down. Her manager also knew that she had taken the breakup with Timberlake very badly, to the point that she was struggling to speak. Nevertheless, her father and manager insisted that she attend the interview, which then only further exacerbated the situation, leaving Spears close to the breaking point. In the years that followed, Spears struggled with mental health issues that resulted in a 13-year conservatorship, which meant that her father was left in charge of the fortune that she had amassed through her music. This order was finally lifted in 2021, and she was finally allowed control over her finances once again. Thanks to a memoir published by Spears, the controversial interview with Sawyer resurfaced, and she was heavily criticized for knowingly exploiting the pop singer, and her fans called for an apology, but Sawyer never offered one, leading many people to suggest that she was willing to lay her morals aside in order to make headlines. Number 8. For decades, Bruce Willis has been considered by many as one of the greatest action heroes and actors of his generation, and possibly of all time. He gained this reputation after appearing in the 1988 action film Die Hard, in which he gave a performance that included not only action scenes, but also humor and resilience. Today, he's known as a well-rounded actor who's appeared in not only action films, but also in horror movies, comedies, and dramas. But he's been described by some as difficult to work with, as he's often argumentative on set, but he's also known as a devout family man. In 2022, his family revealed that he would be stepping away from the spotlight to concentrate on his health, since he'd been diagnosed with aphasia, which is often cited as a forerunner to frontotemporal dementia. This cognitive disorder affects the sufferer's ability to speak, and also affects their behavior and physical movement. Soon after the news was revealed, people started speculating about one specific interview with the BBC's The One Show, which was conducted in 2013. During that appearance, Willis acted strangely and seemingly had difficulty stringing his complete sentences together. Viewers who watched the interview were left concerned for his health, since he seemed completely out of sorts and disconnected. Some felt that he was merely disinterested or had become bored with the questions that were being asked, while others believed that his behavior pointed to something more sinister, such as mental health issues. At one point, when he was asked about his latest film that was about to be released, he inexplicably stated that he wanted to have a sandwich and invited the interviewer, Alex Jones, to go shopping with him. Jones stated after the fact that Willis may have felt uncertain about his latest film, or that his sense of humor didn't translate well during the interview. She stated that whenever they broke for a commercial, Willis would ask how the interview was going, since he wanted to make a good impression, but Jones repeatedly told him that it wasn't going well. In the wake of the interview, the press had a field day. They speculated that Willis was uninterested and stated that he seemed distant. They added that Jones did her best to get more enthusiastic responses from the actor, but her efforts failed. At one point, he was asked what he thought about an asteroid that was approaching Earth, and Jones made a reference to Willis's 1998 film Armageddon. But Willis seemed to either not understand the connection or simply didn't feel like discussing it. After criticism by the media, Willis apologized, stated that he realized it was a boring interview, and that he added he was still suffering from jet lag during the interview. He made sure to add that it was not the fault of his interviewers, who did a good job that day, and that he was entirely to blame. Number 7. Some interviewers will stop at nothing to get the answers that they're looking for when sitting down with a celebrity, even if it means crossing a line, as was the case in an interview with Ellen DeGeneres and pop singer Mariah Carey in 2008. At one point, Ellen DeGeneres enjoyed interviewing celebrities on her self-titled TV show, which remained popular for many years. But in 2021, the show would come to an abrupt halt when several of her staff members revealed that behind the scenes she acted like a bully and created an extremely dark working environment. After the show was canceled for good, many viewers started recounting similar bullish behavior during an interview with Mariah Carey in 2008, in which the singer's discomfort was obvious, but DeGeneres seemed oblivious to the fact or simply chose to ignore it. At the time, Carey was married to Nick Cannon, and the tabloids had started speculating as to whether or not she was pregnant. While this is common with these types of publications, it often draws ire from celebrities and their fans alike, since they feel this type of information is to be revealed when they're ready, rather than being forced to give an answer. But DeGeneres failed to recognize that, as she repeatedly asked Carey whether or not she was expecting a child. Carey merely laughed when the question was asked, and quickly tried to change the direction of the interview, but DeGeneres would not give up so easily. At one point, she got up off her couch and walked to the back of the set, where she poured 2 glasses of champagne. She kept one for herself and offered the other to Carey, who, if pregnant, would not risk ingesting alcohol. It was a clever ruse intended to trick Carey, who then pretended to take a small sip, and DeGeneres could be heard yelling, "You're pregnant." Many viewers criticized the interviewer at the time, but she failed to apologize for her bullying tactics. Carey would later state that she wished DeGeneres had been more empathetic during the interview, and revealed that at the time she was indeed pregnant, but added that she unfortunately had a miscarriage a short while later. Number 6. The famous British singer Amy Winehouse rose to prominence as a performer as soon as her debut album entitled Frank was released in 2003. It reached the number 3 spot on the UK albums chart, and before long she became a household name around the world. But this didn't come as a surprise to her family, since she'd shown a talent for performing from a very early age. She also showed her rebellious side early on, as she was expelled from her school, the Sylvia Young Theatre School in London, on several occasions, as she refused to remove her nose ring. By the time she turned 16, she was performing in jazz groups, and she was starting to show promise as a talented actress. When her debut album was released, she was praised for her lyricism and smoky vocals, though she would later reveal that she wasn't overly fond of the songs that were included on the album. It wasn't long before Winehouse's life started to become chaotic. She became involved in several turbulent relationships, the most notable of these being with Blake Fielder Civil. She then released her next album entitled Back to Black, and it was noted that she had altered her vocal style, adopting a style more akin to the 1960s and 70s. This album contained a track called Rehab, which would prove to be a precursor to much of her life, as she started struggling with alcoholism and addiction to illegal substances as her career progressed, and she became more famous. The album proved to be successful in the US as well, but Winehouse's fans started to suspect that she was struggling with addiction, thanks to sudden weight loss and the appearance of tattoos on her body. She and Fielder Civil tied the knot in 2007, but before long, her change of lifestyle started to affect her career, and her fans were often left disappointed when she canceled shows at the last minute. According to those close to her, she started acting strangely and erratically. On many occasions when she was able to perform, she appeared inebriated and sometimes confused while she was on stage. At one point while she was in Norway, she was taken into custody for the possession of a controlled substance, and Fielder Civil was arrested after he became involved in a brawl in a bar. Nevertheless, in 2008, she won the Best-Selling Pop Rock Female Award at the World Music Awards. Unbeknownst to the public, though, she'd entered a downward spiral from which there would be no escape. She would make several attempts to turn her life around by booking into rehab centers, but she would only remain there for a few days before leaving and falling back into her old habits. Her marriage fell apart in 2009, and in 2011 it was reported she'd passed away from alcohol intoxication. And many of her fans look back on an interview with Jonathan Ross that was aired in 2004. Ross could be heard commenting on how confident she was, and throughout the interview, her answers were succinct, and she seemed to be enjoying herself immensely. It serves as a bittersweet few minutes that her fans will remember for many years to come in her absence. Number 5. The famous actress Melissa Benoist was born in Houston, Texas, where she grew up with 2 sisters and 5 half-siblings. When her parents decided to get divorced, she moved to Denver, Colorado with her mother, and from early on it became obvious she had a talent for performing. She excelled at dancing and made her stage debut in a church play when she was 4 years old. She then became a member of a children's theater group. When she reached her teenage years, she started working at Disneyland during the summer months, and by 2006, she was being hailed as a talent to watch. After completing high school, she relocated to New York and enrolled at Marymount Manhattan College, from where she graduated with a theater arts degree. She appeared in several TV shows including Blue Bloods, Homeland, and Law & Order, but made her film debut in a movie called Tennessee. Her breakthrough role would come when she successfully auditioned for a part in the musical show Glee, during which she showcased her talents at both acting and singing. Thanks to the popularity of the show, she soon gained millions of fans around the world, and she soon started receiving offers to appear in films like Whiplash and The Longest Ride. Her fanbase only grew when she landed the role of Supergirl in 2015. The show would remain popular for 6 seasons, but she continued to work on other projects at the same time, such as the miniseries called Waco. In 2021, she showed her talent as an author when she wrote a young reader's fantasy book called Haven's Secret, along with her sister Jessica and Mariko Tamaki. 6 years earlier, she and fellow Glee star Blake Jenner got married, and from the outside, their marriage seemed perfect. But sadly, this was not the case. In 2019, she took to Instagram to reveal that she'd been the victim of domestic abuse for years, and while she didn't divulge the name of her abuser, it would later come to light that these instances occurred while she was married to Jenner. In a 14-minute video, she explained that she and Jenner met just after her previous relationship had ended, and in retrospect, she was not ready to enter another. But after spending some time together, they decided to start dating, and it didn't take long for Jenner's abusive traits to come to the fore. He would become angry whenever she spoke to another man, and would often take control of her cell phone and other devices to make sure she wasn't talking to anyone that he disapproved of. It would also cause friction between the two whenever she had to film a romantic scene in one of her shows or movies, as Jenner was unable to suppress his jealousy and started taking it out on Melissa. He would tell her to change her outfits as he didn't want other men looking at her, and before long, she started turning down acting roles that she was interested in for fear that they would cause a problem in the relationship. Up to this point, she'd suffered from emotional abuse, but a few months into the marriage, he started to become physically abusive when he threw a smoothie in her face. She never told anyone about the incident since she felt ashamed and feared that he would retaliate if she sought help. In the video, she went on to explain that during the marriage she was slapped, pinched, dragged by the hair, and when she tried to lock herself in a room once, Jenner broke down the door and continued abusing her. When these revelations were made, viewers remembered an interview that Melissa attended on the Jimmy Fallon show, in which she explained she'd fallen and hit her eye on a potted plant, which caused an injury to her eye that never really healed. It's been suggested that this never happened, and she was covering for Jenner. Number 4. Thanks to his portrayal of African heroes in several films and TV shows, many people believed that Chadwick Boseman hailed from Africa, but in reality, he was born in South Carolina, where he grew up with 2 older siblings. During his high school years, he showed promise as a basketball player, but his life took an unexpected turn when one of his teammates lost his life after he was attacked by someone brandishing a firearm. In tribute to his friend, he penned a play and found that he had a real talent for it. He completed high school and then attended Howard University, where he learned how to become a director. But he also started acting at the University of Oxford during this time, and upon finishing college he moved to Brooklyn. There, he continued his studies while teaching acting classes at the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture to make ends meet. During this time, he not only directed plays, but also appeared in several plays as an actor. He made his TV debut in a show called Third Watch, and also appeared on the famous soap opera All My Children. He started to gain some fame when he appeared in shows like CSI New York, Law & Order, and ER, but in 2008, he broke into the film industry when he landed a role in the movie The Express. He then rose to fame when he portrayed the famous baseball player Jackie Robinson in the film 42. His true breakout role, though, came when he was cast in the Marvel film Captain America: Civil War as the character Black Panther, who serves as the king of a fictional African country called Wakanda. He chose to play that same role in the film Black Panther, gaining millions of fans in the process, many of whom had no idea he hailed from the United States. He would reprise that role in 2 Avengers films, namely Infinity War and Endgame. He made his last appearance as an actor in the film Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, and he would win an Academy Award for that performance, but only after he passed away from colon cancer in 2020. Most of Boseman's fans were unaware of his condition, since he didn't speak about it publicly, and it would only be after his passing that one particular incident, which occurred during an interview in 2008, resurfaced and proved to be very revealing. At the time, Boseman and a few of his Black Panther co-stars sat down to speak to Sway Galloway from SiriusXM, and he recounted hearing about 2 young terminally ill fans who were excited to see the new Black Panther release, but never got the chance as they both passed away before it was released. It's thought that he became emotional not only because of the loss of 2 fans, but because he was struggling with colon cancer and knew he might eventually succumb to the condition one day. Number 3. David Letterman made his name as a stand-up comedian who regularly performed at the Comedy Store in Los Angeles. In 1978, he made his first appearance on The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson, and he would eventually serve as the show's guest host. This led to his being offered the job as host of his own show entitled The David Letterman Show, but it was canceled after just 3 months when the show failed to resonate with daytime audiences. He finally rose to fame when he started hosting Late Night with David Letterman in 1982. He interviewed well-known actors, musicians, and comedians, but he drew some criticism for his antagonistic behavior towards some of his guests. One example being the famous singer Cher. He then switched networks and started hosting The Late Show with David Letterman, which proved to be an instant hit with audiences. He was selected to host the Academy Awards in 1995, but failed to make an impression. It was at this time that his show started seeing a decline in ratings as more viewers started tuning into The Tonight Show. He took a break from hosting when he underwent heart surgery in 2000, and 12 years later, he became the longest-running late-night talk show host, having served in that role for 3 decades. He stepped down from hosting in 2015, but in 2018, he started hosting the show My Next Guest Needs No Introduction with David Letterman, which aired once a month. He also created a production company called Worldwide Pants, and he became the owner of a race car team. But Letterman's career has not been without controversy. In the latter years, it came to light that he'd acted inappropriately towards some of his female guests and female staff members. He admitted to having several affairs with some of his female staff members, and that television producer Robert Halderman had attempted to extort $2 million from him after finding out about the affairs. When news of this broke, viewers started recounting other strange incidents during his time as a host, and referred back to a few interviews that did not age well. During one incident, while he was interviewing Lindsay Lohan, he repeatedly asked her about her time in rehab facilities, and despite her obvious discomfort, he would not stop talking about it. She eventually snatched his notes out of his hand while admonishing him for trying to make fun of her addiction and mental health problems. But one particular interview that's since resurfaced has left viewers baffled not only by his behavior, but at the fact that he went as far as he did. While interviewing Jennifer Aniston in 1998, the actor was attempting to promote her latest film, called The Object of My Affection. At one point, she was discussing her fans and saying that she'd run into a few of them while in the steam room at the gym that she frequented. It was at this point that Letterman did something truly bizarre that's still making viewers feel uncomfortable. While Aniston was talking, he rolled his chair in behind her, and the look of confusion on her face was obvious. He then stated, "Forgive me if this is rude, I just wanted to try one thing," before taking hold of a strand of her hair and placing it in his mouth without her consent. He sucked on her hair for a moment before rolling his chair away, and then handed her a tissue, which she used to dry her hair. Aniston could be heard asking, "What are you doing?" and seemed even more uncomfortable once she realized what was happening. Letterman would later apologize to his wife and staff members for his unacceptable behavior and admitted that the show was filmed in a sexist environment. Number 2. Jussie Smollett started his career as a performer in 1991, when he was still a child. He made his acting debut in the film The Mighty Ducks, and from 2015 to 2019 played the role of musician Jamal Lyon in the show Empire. He'd gained quite a following by this point, but in 2019 he made headlines after contracting the police to report that he'd been the victim of a heinous crime. On the 29th of January that year, a friend of Smollett's contacted the police, saying that a crime had been committed against the actor, but that he had decided to report it since Smollett failed to. When the police arrived at Smollett's house, they noted that his clothes were in a disheveled state and that he had a white rope around his neck. Smollett then stated that he'd visited a Subway restaurant at around 2 a.m. that morning, and when he walked out of the building, he was approached by two men. They started shouting insults and slurs at him and eventually started assaulting him without provocation. He stated that they used their fists and weapons to beat him, but added that he was also kicked and bitten during the attack. He claimed that the primary aggressor was wearing a black mask and hence he couldn't see his face. Both men were dressed in all black clothing, and he could not give a description of either man other than their approximate height and weight. But the attack didn't end there, as a rope was then placed around his neck and a chemical thought to be bleach was poured over him. He added that he'd been receiving threatening letters in the mail for about a week before the incident took place. Smollett was taken to a doctor who examined his injuries, but he was released when it was found he hadn't suffered any serious injuries. As soon as news of the attack broke, several actors and musicians reached out with messages of support, and they condemned the act outright. But during the resulting investigation, Smollett refused to hand over his phone to investigators. This struck the police as strange, since they merely wanted to confirm that he was on the phone with his manager when the incident occurred. They accepted his refusal since they didn't want to traumatize him any further. In the days after the attack, several images of people of interest were made public, but no one was identified as a suspect. On the 11th of February, Smollett provided the police with a PDF file of his phone records, but much of the information was intentionally left out. It was during this time that he sat down for an interview on Good Morning America, in which he recounted the attack and laid to rest any rumors that had been swirling. Two brothers who worked as extras on the Empire series were arrested, but not charged in relation to the incident. Smollett's interview, though, would come back to haunt him when he was arrested on the 21st of February. He was charged with filing a false police report after it came to light he lied about the attack since he was dissatisfied with the salary he was being paid. He believed that the incident would further his career, and he paid the two brothers to stage the assault. The charges against him were eventually dropped, and the case was labeled an embarrassment to the American people. Number 1. Matt Lauer made a name for himself in television when he started hosting Today, a role that he filled for the better part of 20 years. But after all that time, it would come to light that he'd acted unprofessionally towards some of his female employees when one woman came forward to report that he'd acted inappropriate towards her during the Olympics in 2014. But once the games had run their course, that same behavior continued, and after the report was made public, 2 more women came forward to report similar behavior towards them. Lauer was immediately dismissed from his role, and an investigation was started. One of his accusers reported that he had assaulted her in his office years earlier in 2001, and that it was not an isolated event. Lauer then released a statement in which he denied some of the claims, but admitted that the accusations held enough truth to cause shame and embarrassment at his behavior. Some people started claiming he'd chosen to do this in the workplace since the victims were less likely to report him due to his high standing with the network. Many more staff members were interviewed, and it was found that at least 3 women had been assaulted by Lauer in this manner. On one occasion, he approached a female employee and suggested that they be intimate, but when she refused, he became angry and reprimanded her. On another occasion, he presented a female employee with an inappropriate gift and made lewd comments toward her after the fact. It then came to light that several complaints had been filed by his victims, but the company's management didn't take them seriously. This was denied by senior staff, but most people believed that Lauer's actions were being covered up and that he had indeed committed these acts. Many of his coworkers were shocked by these revelations, since they had no idea what was going on behind closed doors. Many of the show's fans then recounted a 2009 interview that Lauer conducted with actress Sandra Bullock, which was not only creepy at the time, but following the accusations painted him in an even more undesirable light. At the time, Bullock was promoting her film The Proposal, which contained a scene in which she appears unclothed. Lauer started the interview with the words, "I have now seen you naked," and Bullock tried to laugh it off as a tasteless joke. She could be seen trying to change the subject, but Lauer kept harping on about the scene, and as the interview continued, it became obvious she was growing ever more uncomfortable, with many viewers noting that he seemed to be leering at her throughout. She mentions that he had been talking about the scene from the moment the interview started, and before leaving, stated that she would not be returning to the show for another interview in the future. Lauer would later apologize to his victims, but the damage to his reputation had been done, and his true nature was exposed for the entire world to see. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep up to date with all of our future videos. But my name is Ty Knott, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.